I got 5 points to mention. The first one, the beginning of our relationship was somewhat uncomfortable, but not because of the people of technology itself, but rather because I somehow presented to you guys around 2020 the mining operations that were not easy to deal with in terms of technologies, and they were also very complicated to understand because they were coming to complement our productivity measurement projects, both for assets and workers. Okay. The second point to mention is that once we were able to alleviate all doubts, and also you were able to understand the context and need for how we were in Chile wanted to use Favendo's technologies, then everything began to navigate correctly. The response time between Chile and Germany were phenomenal. There are no negative comments about. Quite opposite. On the opposite, all communication and joint decision was based on the opening of Favendo brands in addition to the excellent relationship that both teams highlight. And 4, the technology worked incredibly well, both underground and also in the pit mine. The margin of error we achieved were no higher than 2.1%. The effectiveness of the platform, Favendo platform, exceed 98%, and the availability of the joint platform exceed 98.3%. Just for the record, in mine operation, this type of implementation and technologies never exceed 93 or 94%. And the last point to mention, after having installed, configured, and maintained many test iterations from our customer side, it happened that our final customer were looking for how to implement these RTLS technologies and in their position in various forms and problems. So I got nothing left but to thank my colleagues of Favendo. I'm very, very happy to have met them and to have carried out a series of projects with them.
So, with this, basically, we can give an overview about how the partnership works between us three. Yeah. So we add the value to various use cases. For example, with Actility devices and GPS positioning, we can give a lot of like GPS information in a certain area where we use the LoRa technology to submit the data to our system, which is a highly customized solution. Depending on your environment needs in your use case and your environment. And we are also able, with all of our stack, that means Favendo, ABWay, as well as Quuppa, to always deploy also on premises, which is still demanded for data protection reasons quite often. On that end, basically for the tags, we use, for example, Actility because they have a low power multi-technology trackers that can do the GPS, like I said, outside, but they can also do a normal beacon sensing as well as being tracked by the Quuppa system very precisely with BLE angle of arrival. And Quuppa itself, they have a very scalable positioning solution with very reliable location information. I can say that spot on, like from the deploys we did with Quuppa. I think they are like one of the smoothest positionings which we have in the indoor environment, and also super precise. And you can also use it in different vertical markets. And by this, I hand over Fabio.
Thank you, Stefan. So I guess, Larry, so Stefan, you can operate maybe the slide. So if you can go to the next one. So what I would like to introduce is a concept that is not really new, but it's probably the framing of this concept into something that is becoming more and more requested by the market, especially if you think about an end customer owning a factory, a large size facility. They might not operate only within one building or one facility, but they might have their assets that can be stored or operate and moved around different kind of environments, from indoor, where that is an assembly line or a warehouse, to, of course, the outdoor area. And the end customer itself doesn't really care to know which technology is tracking what. The basic question they want answer for is, where is it? And based on that information, that's where all the KPIs and use case kind of develop, from reducing the search time to optimize the operational flow, or to simply do basic inventory management. So when you are in a certain type of environment, like a distribution center, the customer, it's always very interesting to know how things are with a high degree of accuracy as well as a small latency, because those are area where knowing the absolute location of the object with typically less than a meter accuracy and maybe a few seconds latency, even less than a second latency, might really enable the specific use case. And of course, getting the real-time relationship between the location of two objects. Then if you go to the next slide, Larissa, then we can show that also in those kind of environment, the assets might be stored outdoor. When it goes outdoor, then the pinpoint accuracy is not necessarily needed anymore, but as factory might have very large outdoor areas, we just want to know, first of all, is it there or not? And if it is there, where roughly it is, so that someone would be able to drive by and maybe find it or pick it up. So we are moving from a high accuracy requirement for indoor locationing within the distribution center to more like a proximity like requirement for the outdoor. And then if you go to the next slide, there might be areas where the customer or the end customer might only need air presence detection. For instance, if you have a warehouse where you have many parts or many pieces of equipment, he just wants to know, is it there? Is it in my inventory? Has it been used? Should I order a new part? So it can really be a binary, is it there or not? So as you can see, hybrid RTLS is this concept where effectively we are trying to provide seamless asset tracking, seamless across different environments, different requirements of latency and accuracy, but always to be able to answer the question where it is in a completely painful way to the end customer. Because again, the end customer doesn't care which technology is otherwise providing that fulfillment. And if you go to the next slide, Larissa, so, sorry, once more. So what, and here you can just click at the regular pace. So what is happening within such an environment, you can, you can go on with the clicking. So you can practically distinguish three different conjugation of RTLS or real-time location system. So the one that we call unlimited RTLS, which practically means whatever you can tag, you can track. You have an infrastructure in place, like in the distribution center, and you really want to know with pinpoint accuracy where everything is and moves around the environment. So that's where, by effectively putting one infrastructure in place, then you can enable any and many different use cases up to your imagination or the end customer imagination. But unfortunately, this is not always possible, and there are different constraints, budget being, of course, one of them. And if you look at the right bottom corner, where there is the infraless RTLS, those are typically situations where you are like outdoor. And in that case, there is no dedicated infrastructure that can be deployed, but you want to use what is already available. So that could be GPS based location, or it can be something that, for instance, would leverage already barcode scanning. That's why there is this need to locate. So by positioning the scanner via GPS, you can then position items that are, for instance, just beaconing in the nearby. So again, avoiding the infrastructure part. And then on the bottom left side, that's the tagless RTLS, which practically means situation where the customer has many assets, even very small, to the point that you cannot put dedicated tags attached to it, but you could maybe put a barcode scanner, a barcode sticker or a QR code. And therefore, by scanning the device, scanning the item with the device and positioning that device, you can effectively read to locate the position of that item. And if you click more, Larissa, a technology like Quuppa, once more, technology like Quuppa can really embrace these three different corners of application and everything in between, where effectively you don't always have at your disposal an infrastructure, or you don't have requirements for the high accuracy, but you have to shape the solution to fulfill the requirements that the end customer has. And of course, the budget is an important piece. And if you go to the next slide, if you operate with large customers, they don't have only one complex site, they actually have many complex sites. So things actually get exponentially more complex. And in that respect, what we have put together is a solution that we call Quuppa for Enterprise that enables to link together many sites with different requirements that resides on different geographical area into one portal. And in that way, be able to manage and operate all of these at scale. These are typically requirements that for small projects, they seem useless or an over-engineering, and it's right. If this project is small, you can do it in a much lighter way. But when the project gets big, that's when version control, updating software, getting connectivity to remote sites, passing IT and firewall requirements, they really become the hurdle for the scalability of the project. So any one of you that have been working on large industrial side, I think they can probably relate to the pain point of doing things not in small, but in large scale. That's where the Quuppa for Enterprise really comes in. And so the combination of hybrid RTLS, so moving across different type of sites seamlessly, provide the where it is within one site, and then provide the where it is across many sites remotely located. It's really the core of seamless asset tracking and hybrid RTLS. And this concludes my part.
Okay, so thank you, Fabio, for the insight and for the different possibilities. Even very interesting points about the infrastructure fee, like locating in particular for small items. Think about boxes for screws, for example, where you just locate the tagger or like the scanning device. So from our side, we will show you how this is now done in our environment. Yeah, so you can see now a demo. This time I don't need the audio. I will comment by myself on this. So I'll take over. Before I start the video, here you can see basically the Favendo front end. Just one hint before, like the floor is now named Actility. We have basically in our demo environment in our office, we have just one floor, but we named the floor levels after the different technologies that we use. So basically Actility, Favendo, and Quuppa. And on the left side, you can see basically the mobile version of our front end for the asset tracking. Where our colleague will also switch to the camera mode, so you can see actually in real time what's going on. On the right side is actually the desktop version of the front end. So I will start the video, I will comment it, and you can see that we basically start with an unmatched tag. That means we just have an ID. We have a zone 15, which is one of the parking lots outside of our building. And we have a last seen position here. So we will go through this within the next minutes, which is the first part. So at first you can see our colleague Kevin being outside on the parking lot itself. That's him. That's basically an ABWay smart badge tracker, which has an ID on it. On the same hand, Kevin has his Favendo ID, which is basically a QR code which we use for the actual matching process. That means before we start actually the demo or moving, we switch to our software, which is called the Asset Manager, where you just log in, for example, with Face ID on any mobile device with your password, and you can pretty easily add a new asset name. You can do this with a barcode scanner, for example, on the production side, or you can do it just by phone. So it reads his name Kevin by the QR code. It reads the Quuppa Smart Badge QR code. So the tag ID is matched. We simply confirm it. Voila. We know now Kevin has the tag ID, which you can see here on screen. That means he's currently outside the building. Here we use a lesser update rate, for example, for the GPS. So the multimode tracker is basically updating GPS signals when moving with a higher latency. This is for a general overview of the outside assets. That's not an issue. Also to mention, he's now entering the building, as you can see in the video, in that ground floor, which is not owned by us or not rented by us. We do not have any hardware installed for sensing. That means he goes upstairs. His position is obviously as a last seen position still outside in the GPS area. And now we come to the floor where the Favendo office is located. So to give you a short overview, we will switch the mode now. You can see the anchors. In that part, these anchors here on this floor are actually BLE beacons, which are used as anchors, as you can see also here in the video. That means here we use the functionality of the Smart Badge from ABWay to sense those beacons and update those positions with the Favendo system on basically an RSSI basis. That here means we have a rough location about the room we are in. So you can see it's a pretty dense anchor deploy, yet it's pretty easy to be done because it's simply putting beacons up on the ceiling. But now basically we switch to the Quuppa system. So this is our developer's office. So we see here a little bit of latency, of course, but we have here now an angle of arrival positioning detection. That means the positioning is very accurate. In our office here, it's down to approximately 30 to 20 centimeters. You can see the Quuppa anchors hanging there. The tag easily going back and forth along Kevin's position as he's moving through the office. You can see the small dip between the tables. And now basically what he's doing, what we are doing with a kind of a logic, he's putting the tag in the dematching zone, which is kind of a thing that we do if we handle a lot of tags. Yeah, you have seen the matching process, which is pretty easy with our web application, and where you can use also standard scanners if they are from Zebra or like Honeywell or whatever. But what we do actually also within the Quuppa system, where we have also the communication to the tag and backwards, we can have, let's say, refined processes. So if you have a tag, for example, for a certain time in the zone, as you can see now at the end of the video, Kevin is now dematched as he's spent a certain time in the zone. And that is, for example, handy for use case when you have some shipments going out of a warehouse. Yeah, so the workers actually don't have to manually scan again to dematch a tag in the process, but you simply put them in a certain area. Like think about when you buy clothes, for example, at H&M or Zara, you have the anti-theft tag. Just put them in some designated area, and you don't have to care about dematching process. This can also be done in our system to actually forward this automatic dematching process data to any ERP system, like, for example, an SAP. So you can have an automatic booking in the SAP without the worker to actually have to log in. Okay, so I hope that's a good overview about like how a hybrid RTLS would work in a real environment, yeah, with slow updates And
Stefan, a question, please. So can you confirm that basically with the same tag, I think it's the first time I see the same tag used to move from outdoor into indoor with different technologies without changing the configuration, right? The server, you didn't change any configuration in between.
No, there's nothing changed. So we have basically an AB-Way smart badge, which gives us the GPS signal in the outside area. Once we go into the standard Favendo office, where we have beacons, which we also use for indoor navigation on smartphones, we use the same beacons actually for positioning that tag with a latency of, let's say, 5 to 8 seconds in the rooms. Yeah, so you have a room accuracy. And once you get to the developer's office where the Quuppa demo is deployed, you instantly switch to the BLE AOA positioning, which has a super low latency. I think in the Pro version, we can have update rates up to 50 Hertz, which is actually too much for most industrial use cases.
Yes.
But you use one tag, don't have to change any configuration, and you cover all these 3 areas, which Fabio mentioned before, with presence sensing, GPS outdoors, and high precision positioning.
Great.
And the good thing is your tag in this case is also rechargeable. Okay, so let's go to some of the use cases and success stories. So Larissa, if you would please pop over to the first slide. As we had the testimonial with in the beginning with IGO, here we had the use case in Minera Antucoya, which is a copper mine. It is an open pit mine, but has also some maintenance area. And here the goal was actually together with their platform to boost the productivity and the utilization of the machines, but also give the employees always the right area of maintenance equipment, and also basically put the whole documentation process from a paper that was always super dusty into a digitized platform. So the challenge there was like, so ferrous, electromagnetic, or dusty environments, yeah, which can influence the signal strength, but will also put it a pretty harsh dip on the hardware. For example, here we have also used the customized casing on the right-hand side for some of our like tracker hardware to prevent any dust from entering. You can see one of the first versions in one of the next slides. And in the productivity dashboard from IGO, we could basically look what we have achieved. So here you can see a standard device, and you can see it's pretty dusty. And also when you are on site, the masks, which we know from the pandemic, they're actually of no use. So you have to do a little bit of a better mask in that environment. And what we achieved here is the elimination of paperwork. So from IGO, we got the testimonial that we saved about 1 hour of time savings per technician per day. So we had a productivity increase for a 7-hour shift of 14%, and we could reduce the 18% of the maintenance and repair costs just for providing the visibility and the whole digitized platform to do all that updates. On the next case, Larissa, we have, for example, a logistic process. This is the same example where we said, for example, where we use the dematching zone. So it's a German manufacturer that is operative in different plants, which provides hydraulic equipment for different industry, automotive, aerospace. So it's also the item itself, they are in normal carts or like cart boxes, but they're pretty ferrous. That means like once you get stacked over each other in the warehouse, you don't have a good signal anymore. So their use case actually was in the shipping department to get an overview about what's still in here, because we have a difference between the ERP system. In their case, they have an X4 platform, so competition to SAP in case you know them. So basically, the issue is in the shipping department, an order gets booked out in the system, yeah, because it has been sold, yeah. All the paperwork for the export, customs and so on has been done, but the parcel itself, or like the commissioning number itself, is still in the warehouse, maybe because the customer has not sent the forwarder yet, or there has been an issue with the payments and so on. So what they did is actually every Friday they did like a manual scan of all of the equipments, even putting down items by forklift. And so this is very similar to actually what Fabio already explained. Track the scanner, but we went one step further because they have pretty large parcels, so you can actually attach a tag. We now cover the whole area in their shipping department. That means they can have a real-time inventory at any time. And also, we have the automated inventory process. So they're using basically the matching process from us. We have streamlined workarounds for any topics that appeared. We have now the anytime real-time inventory. This basically, given that they had a manual inventory every Friday, saves them about 900 hours per year just by doing the inventory. On the other hand, when they did the inventory manually, for example, the forklift, it hit the commissioning packaging, so they had sometimes to repack it because it was damaged, and all these secondary costs were actually not taken into regard. And now with the RTLS system, with the Quuppa tags, we have a real-time inventory, and the costs actually for moving this have been gone down. And we have an automatic dematching once the shipment has gone. That means now they have a full visibility if an item which is not visible in the ERP anymore is still in the warehouse, and when it's going out of the warehouse because of the automated dematching, then you will also get an automated notice for the like in the ERP that an item is not actually on the premises anymore. On the other hand, of course, we have some items which were, for example, not picked up. So the sales department of that particular company gets an automated notification each month about which items have been sitting on the shelf too long, for example. So they can also like forward a monthly, let's say, storage rate to the customers in case they don't get the payment done in time or don't arrange the forwarder to pick up the items in time. Yeah. And then a third use case which we had is like a search and find use case in a car paint line. That means we have a paint shop where they have approximately 250 cars on site, outside and inside. So here we also have the hybrid location of outside and inside tracking. The paint shop is secured on the outside with a fence. So basically each key in the car sticks or like is in the car. That means you cannot run around and find it by light. And sometimes they get 10 times the same BMW Series 3 in black, and they can just identify the item or the car by the car chassis number through the window, which is taking a lot of time. So here we track the cars inside and outside in real time. Not in the super high precision mode, but we have a hybrid thing here. So we know exactly when it's in front of the paint line. If it's in one of the paint areas, we just know the approximate position in the hall so they can define it by parking lot because the cars are not there parked so densely there. So here basically we have the coverage of the entire premises with indoor, outdoor, and we also use in some areas mounted Aruba access points that are BLE capable. So that's another thing which we can incorporate in such a hybrid infrastructure. And they have basically a savings just for one paint shop department of around 30K per year through the system. So 2 hours per year for searching the right cars. You can imagine, like, if you really have to walk around and look through the window to the chassis number that is written there, that's really tough, in particular if you have a huge parking lot. So that's also like a use case where RTLS system is coming pretty handy to save actually costs. All right. And this concludes also my part from Favendo for the solution overview and the use cases. And as you've seen, Shmuel already mentioned, you have one tag for all of these environments. I leave the next few minutes to him to go into his industrial environment hardware portfolio.
Yes, thanks, Stefan. So Larissa, if you wish, you can still control that if you are fine with that. Okay, so thank you very much, Stefan. And as Stefan and I earlier introduced myself, I'm based in Paris. I'm working in activity sales, expert on connectivity and geolocation. So I have a lot of things to show, but in the context of this webinar, I'll show what is relevant and focus on the portfolio items which are really relevant for this discussion. Yes, please, Larissa. So in our portfolio, generally speaking, of hardware at least, we have 4 trackers. On the left side, you can see we have trackers which are more fitted to industry. Okay, so like trucks, luggage, heavy equipment, and so forth. And on the right side, more for light equipment, human beings, animals, and so forth. So all these trackers, I would say, called by our partners and customers, they are very frequently called all-in-one. And this is why they really reflect what they were meant to do. All-in-one in the sense they can do in a seamless way geolocation tracking, indoor and outdoor. You move from indoor to the outdoor, outdoor to indoor. You don't need to do any configuration change. And you have seen that in the demo. I will not add more than that. This is why we like to call them all-in-one. Those trackers on the right side, they also include a buzzer and a light, a buzzer that can help identify if a certain asset or a person is in a certain zone or not in a certain zone. Think about chemical industries. They also include a button in case of for scenarios like SOS emergency use cases. Think about health of people, employees under mining in offshore and this kind of situations. All our trackers includes more or less the same PCB, okay, so the same electronics. They have different type of batteries as listed here. And most important, they include also an accelerometer that enables to define and to set up the device for a certain use case. So if you want, the accelerometer enable us to identify when the device is on movement. So you can define, okay, I want that to track my asset only when in movement. I want to track it on a constant way. I want to have a tracking location each 3 seconds or constantly each 15 seconds, 1 minute, and so forth. Also in standby and so forth. This enables us to save costs of operational costs and of course improve battery life. Thanks, Larissa. So from the technology perspective that is embedded in these trackers, generally speaking, we divide them into 2. So for indoor, we have the BLE and Wi-Fi, and for outdoor, we have the satellite. So BLE, we also include the angle of arrival from Quuppa. So as Stefan said, we are not a native Quuppa tags, but we emulate the Quuppa beacons. Hence, with our devices, it's transparent if you use BLE, Wi-Fi, outdoor GPS, and Quuppa at the same time. It's all activated. It's all enabled. It needs to be activated in certain environments if they are enabled. Wi-Fi, it's classical. You need those Wi-Fi components, additional ones, to make the positioning. GNSS, it's all related to a satellite. Plus, we have this assisted GPS, specifically made by Actility in order to capture the satellite signal faster and broadcast the positioning even faster, but with a bit less accuracy. For those ones which we don't want to use any of these hardware interfaces, they can also use a TDOA, which is basically the triangulation on LoRaWAN, so no interface at all. Of course, for those which are a bit technical guys, they need these messages going out from the device need to be captured at least by 3 gateways in order to enable this triangulation. And you need a condensed network typically with a V2.1 Semtech design gateway in order to do this time stamping. But this is technical stuff. It's possible. There are some customers that are already using that and saves a lot of money. Thanks, Larissa. So when we talk with partners and customers, they come and tell us what are their needs. Favendo, like experts and customers like Tata. They come and tell us what they need. We work with them, we listen to them, and enable their business cases. So one of the highlights that we just issued, I think 1 month ago or 2 months ago, is the ATEX Zone 0 certification. So all our trackers up until now are Zone 2 certified. As of today, our compact tracker is ATEX Zone 0 certified. So what does it mean? That it means that it is approved to be used and operated in environments and places where explosive atmosphere is continuously present and not occasionally. So those one which comes from heavy industry, oil and gas, offshore type of solutions, use cases and environments, they understand that when those environments must, and they are obliging their provider to provide ATEX certified equipment. So ATEX is EU. We have also this IECX certification, which is the US one, which is very similar to the ATEX, but it's a bit tweaks, small tweaks in between. If you want to have the details, so I put the highlights on the right side, the typical use cases and solutions on the left side. My product manager bombarded me with 20 slides about this certification. So it looks like a complex one, but I highlighted everything in one single slide. If you want to know more details, please reach out to Stefan from Favendo or myself about quotes and additional details. Thanks, Larissa. So the combo compact tracker. If I had this tracker maybe 4 years ago, I would reach my sales target at that time. But nevertheless, the combo compact tracker is uses and combines 3 connectivity backhauls. Today, all our devices working with LoRaWAN as a backhaul, and now we are adding support for LTE-M, and which is cellular, and Narrowband IoT LPWA technology. So I don't know if you have seen, but now NB-IoT and LTE-M become to be more and more mature. And I see typical device makers that started from Sigfox technology and LoRaWAN. Now they build up specific devices for Narrowband IoT and LTE-M. They don't do it in one seamless device. Actility has pushed that into one step forward, and now the compact tracker, at this point, only the compact tracker can support these 3 backhaul connectivity layer, which means we have access, we give access to our partners to additional use cases, additional environments, additional networks in a seamless way. Just I want to mention one thing, that these 2 chips of LoRaWAN and the LTE-M and Narrowband IoT sits together, but they are not switching up seamlessly at this point of time. So, but nevertheless, the compact tracker and all our trackers are manageable, which means they can receive commands from the network server and can change their configuration based on the need. But in the future, of course, it will be seamless, and the tracker will be able to adjust its backhaul connectivity based on its environment. Thanks, Arisa. So we hear a lot of experts in heavy industry, oil and gas, and so forth. They come and tell us that there's a lot of beacons in the market, for sure, but they struggle to find ATEX zero-based beacons. So what we did here is we transformed our compact tracker into a beacon. So not only that it supports the ATEX version, it can also support the classical beacons format, like Eddystone, iBeacons, and so on. This is not something special for Actility, but this device, not only it's a classical tracker, but also serves as a beacon, plus is a manageable. So it means that the classical beacons, of course, everything related to price, the classical beacons are disconnected. They are not connected to the network. This beacon device is manageable. So it means it can be adapted to different configurations, different environments using configuration commands from the network server. Yes, Larissa, thanks. So last but not least, I think I made up my 9 minutes I promised to Larissa, the geolocation module. So the geolocation module is a work that Actility done with Murata. We hear when we talk with even competitors, they tell us, okay, they have a device for indoor. They have a device, a tracker for outdoor. So indoor, maybe ultra wideband, outdoor, maybe only GPS. And their customers ask them, okay, I want to leverage the infrastructure that's already installed with additional use cases, indoor and outdoor in the same time. So instead of replacing the entire stack, the entire environment and adding more hardware, which is much more expensive, in a cost manner, okay, and shortening up their time to market, we offer them to take this module who can use a LoRaWAN as a backhaul, and plus all the hardware interfaces I listed earlier, so indoor BLE Wi-Fi, Quuppa, and all satellite configurations, and add it to their devices. The only thing that they need to do is connect it to the PCB and power it up. Everything, including the antennas, are embedded in this module. In the long term, okay, our Actility vision is to use this module also for our trackers. So the compact tracker will be available in early availability with this module, which will also enable us to benefit from additional software features that we will be able to run on this CPU, because this CPU enables much more flexibility in terms of firmware, much more capacity and enhanced features, which we can do in software-wise, like we did with the Quuppa tag, for example. That's it for me. So if there are no more things, I don't see any specific questions, but I'll hand over back to Stefan and Larissa. Thank you.
Yes. So now it's time for your questions. There are not yet any questions in the Q&A section, and we just need some time to think about what you want to know.
Hands-on demo like in your video. So we are welcoming you anytime if you head to Germany to our office. I guess anybody that wants to, Larissa, wants to get a hands-on approach is also welcome. In particular in Germany, we will participate in November on the SPS trade show in Nuremberg, Smart Production Solutions, where we'll also show off this particular case with the easy matching, dematching, so you can really try it hands-on on our devices, which we have there. We will also have Quuppa stuff there, plus Actility. That means we can show the devices there in this particular mode, as promised. Okay. Any more questions?
Questions? Yes, I can see. And of course, we will send you the recording afterwards, and we will also attach the customer experience from Paulo, where we had this technical issues. So you can rewatch it whenever you have time. Yes, and of course, you can reach out to all of us anytime if you have any questions, need more information.
Okay.
Yes.
Like I said, we always work together quite tightly with Actility and Quuppa. In any use case you approach us, we will find a suitable solution, which is then also economical, yeah. Because you can, of course, like plaster everything, and if you just need the presence, like Fabio explained, your infrastructure costs might not pay up, and this is what we actually take into regard when analyzing actually your needs in the process, but also giving you some advice based also on the experiences with our other deploys, what maybe can be improved in your process through the RTLS system itself, yeah. So that basically this additional scanning in the SAP doesn't have to happen anymore, because you can have it automated by just placing the tags in a certain area, or like building other conditions actually to trigger an event in your system. Yeah.
So I see that we now have a question from Rizwan. He's asking, how are multiple location technologies giving the location data, like it's MQTT or API to integrate to other platforms? So a very technical question.
Can I answer this? Fine. Okay, so basically we get, of course, like a GPS data. If we take it from the Actility tag, we get this data by long lat format. If we get from the Quuppa system data, we can select in their API actually how to process this in our platform. That means we can have a smoothened position, we can have the actual position, we can have it also as a long lat format if we combine it on the site. Yeah, so there's certain options which we will take care of, which is the best configuration for you in that case. If we have the beacon sensing, for example, then we get the payloads from Actility of the raw beacons, and we put it through our own positioning engine to the for the room accuracy positioning or 3 to 5 meter accuracy positioning, and all this is basically streamlined in our API, which you can either stream via MQTT. So basically, in our API, Rapid MQ is embedded, so you can stream from there. Also, if you have use cases where it needs to be pushed, we also support an AMQP push. Yeah. Okay.
I want to mention one more thing, Stefan. Thanks for that. From Actility server, you can retrieve in push or pull mode the information with classical applications without having the hassle to do the integration. So, like if you have an application running on Azure or AWS, MQTT, HTTP, and other type of classical cloud providers, then it's all native for us as well.
Questions. So yeah, almost 12. So I would say we're done. We're finished. Thank you everybody for joining. Yeah, thank you for your presentation. Stefan, Fabio, and Shmuel. Yeah, Shmuel.
By mistake, I wanted to do something else. Okay. No, I really appreciate Favendo for organizing that. And to be sure and to be very clear on that, Favendo is, from Actility perspective, is one of the best partners on geolocation, and this is their expertise, and this is their bread and butter, and we have a great cooperation. And the advantage that we hear from customers that working with Favendo is that eventually you don't have to talk with Actility separately, with Quuppa separately. You need to talk with one. It's a one-stop shop, and you talk with Stefan and Larissa, then you have it all. Quuppa, the application, the technology, and this is what is the benefit of the tree let's say partnership here. But eventually, don't be frightened by three presenters. There's only one solution provider here that provides a turnkey solution. It's Favendo. So great stuff. Thank you.
You want to chime in?
Yeah, also from my side, thank you, Stefan and Larissa, for organizing this discussion, and for anybody online that you want to ask further questions, you can definitely contact Favendo and Quuppa, and we're happy to support you for what we can. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much all. All the best.
Everybody,
Thank you.
Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.